What happens when a prison officer dares to expose corruption inside one of Britain's toughest jails? For 33-year-old father of three, Lenny Scott, doing the right thing meant signing his own death warrant. 4 years after uncovering a secret affair between an inmate and a fellow officer, Lenny was gunned down outside a Skelmersdale gym, his last words chillingly caught on CCTV. Was it a random act of violence, or the final move in a long calculated vendetta? Welcome to Crime Pulse, where we uncover the real stories behind the UK's deadliest criminal underworlds. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join thousands digging deep into Britain's most shocking true crime cases. Lenny Scott, born John Scott on October 15, 1990, was just 33 when his story took that fatal turn. He earned his nickname Lenny from the gentle giant in Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, a fitting moniker for a man known for his big heart and unyielding sense of right and wrong. Growing up in modest circumstances, Lenny threw himself into service early on, enlisting in the Royal Air Force as a firefighter. He even did a tour in the Falklands, facing the raw edges of duty in harsh, isolated conditions, experiences that toughened him up and instilled a deep respect for rules and responsibility. After leaving the RAF, Lenny didn't slow down. He took on security work at Costco, keeping an eye on the aisles while building his life brick by brick. He even ran a small dog walking business on the side. But in 2018, he stepped into one of the grittiest jobs out there, a prison officer at HMP Altcourse, a Category B high security facility in Liverpool, crammed with some of the North's most hardened criminals, gangsters, drug lords, and violent offenders who tested the limits every day. Living in Skelmersdale, a no-frills town in Lancashire, Lenny balanced the chaos of prison life with his roles as a father and partner. He shared a home with his ex-partner, Lucy Griffiths, the mother of his very young twins, 2 little boys with different hair colors, a detail that would later haunt this case in chilling ways. He also co-parented with another ex, Lucy Carnhill, who was the mother of his 3rd child. Despite the split relationships, Lenny poured everything into being a dad, making sure his kids had stability amid his own struggles. And those struggles were real. He managed type 1 diabetes, a constant battle that demanded discipline, much like his passion for bodybuilding and jiu-jitsu, where he'd push his limits in the gym, sculpting strength from sweat and resolve. At work, Lenny was the real deal, serious, principled, with zero tolerance for slip-ups that could endanger lives. Relatives painted him as gentle and kind, the type who'd drop everything to lend a hand, even as he navigated the financial strains of a modest income. It all started on what should have been a routine day in March 2020, during a standard security sweep at HMP Altcourse. Lenny Scott thought he was just doing his job that March day in 2020 at HMP Altcourse, Liverpool's high-security prison, packed with the North's toughest criminals. During a routine cell search alongside Officer Ryan Robinson, he found a blue iPhone tucked under a pillow in a cell belonging to Elias Morgan, a career criminal with a history of theft, burglary, and conspiracy to rob. In a place like Altcourse, a phone isn't just a gadget, it's a weapon. Inmates use them to run drugs, plan hits, or threaten witnesses, fetching £600 to £800 on the prison black market. The phones are smuggled through crooked staff or drones. When Lenny powered on the device, he uncovered a bombshell. Intimate photos and texts between Morgan and a female prison officer, Sarah Williams. This wasn't just a forbidden fling under prison service rules, it was a betrayal of the system. Sarah had shared confidential inmate details and helped Morgan move freely within the prison, handing him power in a world where control is currency. Morgan later claimed his relationship with Sarah was meant to protect her from blackmail by other inmates, naming 2 prisoners, Connor Crawford and Craig Steenson, as threats. But nothing in the records showed any prior connection or goodwill between Morgan and Lenny that might have eased the tension of this discovery. For Lenny, that phone was proof of corruption eating away at the prison he served. Reporting it was the right call, but it painted a target on his back. Morgan wasn't the type to let exposure slide, and what started as a routine search was about to ignite a deadly grudge. By early March 2020, the air in HMP Altcourse's cell block is thick with tension. Lenny Scott, a prison officer built on duty, holds a blue iPhone pulled from under Elias Morgan's pillow. Its contents aren't just contraband, They expose a corrupt relationship threatening the prison's core. For Lenny, there's no grey area. He reports it, setting off a chain reaction he can't yet see. Lenny hands the phone to his superiors with a meticulous report, intimate messages, Williams leaking inmate data, and bending rules to let Morgan move freely. His unsigned witness statement, filed later in December 2020, shows his resolve, though he opts not to testify, wary of the risks. The prison moves fast. Elias Morgan is questioned, isolated, and moved to a new cell to protect the investigation. 10 days later, he's transferred to another wing, his sway at Altcourse cut off. Sarah Williams faces an internal probe, admits to misconduct in public office and computer misuse, and is arrested. Her career is finished, a custodial sentence looming. Morgan takes it hard. A man who thrives on control, he's been exposed and sidelined because of Lenny's report. Cornered, he tries to claw back power, offering Lenny £1,500 to lose the paperwork and make the phone charge disappear. Lenny shuts him down, his integrity like stone. That refusal sparks something darker. In the prison's corridors, Morgan's glares turn sharp, his whispered insults dripping with hate. Then come the threats. He flashes a gun gesture at Lenny, his voice low and venomous. "I'll bide my time, but I promise I'll get you." It's a vow that carries weight, a warning of trouble brewing. Lenny stands firm, but Morgan's anger is a fire starting to burn. The cost of doing the right thing is creeping closer, and it's not staying behind bars. Soon, that fire would spread, as Morgan's threats take a darker turn and Lenny's fear for his family takes hold. March 2020 was unraveling Lenny Scott. Morgan's threats turned chillingly specific, naming his Prescott home, his car, his partner Lucy Griffiths, and his twins with their distinct hair colors. Morgan promised to blow up Lenny's house with his family inside, and this wasn't an idle boast from a cornered inmate. It was a calculated strike from a man with a history of playing dirty. For Lenny, the fear was starting to seep into every corner of his life. The weight was crushing. At home in Skelmersdale, Lenny opened up to Lucy, his voice low and strained. "I fear for our family's lives. If anything happens, it's him." He'd already reported Morgan's threats to Altcourse's security governor, expecting backup from the system he served. Instead, the prison dismissed the risk as low, closing the case in weeks, a move Lenny's family later slammed as negligence, leaving him exposed in a job that demanded loyalty. With the prison turning a blind eye, Lenny took matters into his own hands. On March 30th, 2020, he called Merseyside Police's non-emergency 101 line from Altcourse, careful not to alarm his family. Logged as incident 217, his call laid bare his dread. He reported a car watching his house all weekend, likely tied to Morgan, who'd offered to eradicate the 2020 phone violation if Lenny backed off. Morgan's details were unnervingly precise, down to the twins' appearance and Lucy's routine. Lenny told the operator he didn't want to scare his family, but couldn't ignore the danger. The police promised a discreet patrol to avoid tipping off any watchers, urging Lenny to keep his routine steady to protect Lucy and the kids, who didn't drive and were stuck at home. Lenny was trapped, his duty to the prison clashing with his need to keep his family safe. Morgan's threats, brushed off by Altcourse, were tightening their hold, and Lenny's call was a desperate shot to hold back the tide. But the tide was still rising. Morgan's anger wasn't done with Lenny, and the next chapter would push him closer to a breaking point. By April 2021, Lenny Scott was fighting a losing battle. The threats from Elias Morgan had already pushed him to the edge, forcing him to call the police to protect his family. In a bitter twist, Lenny was sacked from his job as a prison officer, a blow that cut deeper than the threats themselves. The dismissal stemmed from an incident unrelated to Morgan, a physical altercation during a restraint of an inmate. Details are scarce, but Lenny, under pressure and frayed by months of stress, punched a prisoner during the scuffle. It was a single moment that ended his career. Suspended immediately, he was fired by April 2021. For a man who'd built his life on discipline and duty, the silent exit was a gut punch. It wasn't just about losing his job, it was the erosion of his reputation, the quiet shame of being cast out after years of holding the line. Lenny's family saw the dismissal as more than a firing. They pointed to the prison's failure to act on Morgan's threats, which had left Lenny isolated and under strain. After leaving Altcourse, Lenny pivoted to security work and later a warehouse job at Gusto, packing meals and clawing back some balance. He threw himself into being a dad to his 3 kids, finding moments of peace in Skelmersdale. But the shadow of Morgan's vendetta lingered, a constant reminder that doing the right thing had cost him more than his badge. That shadow grew heavier when Morgan was freed from prison in 2022, still on bail awaiting trial for offences linked to the phone discovery. His grudge unbroken, Morgan began crafting a meticulous plan for revenge, one that would culminate in cold-blooded murder. As Elias Morgan stepped out of prison on bail, his hatred for Lenny Scott was still burning. The 2020 phone bust that cost him his leverage at HMP Altcourse and landed him charges, with a trial set for February 19, 2024, wasn't something he'd let go. Morgan's revenge wasn't a rash outburst, it was a calculated hunt. He recruited Anthony Cleary, a Liverpool mate with a record for drugs and firearms, to handle logistics. Morgan spent weeks shadowing Lenny, tracking his routine with chilling precision. On January 3, 2024, he drove a Ford Fiesta to scout Lenny's Prescott home, his old Pure Gym in Speak, and his new Peel House gym in Skelmersdale. Every detail was mapped out, where Lenny lived, worked out, and moved. To stay invisible, Morgan planned meticulously. He'd slipped off to Spain and Dubai after his release, reportedly collecting money, possibly to fund a hit, dodging bail restrictions via Ireland. He used his mother's Mercedes GLC, switching plates to avoid detection. For the attack, he chose a silent e-bike, easy to stash for a quick escape. On February 7, 2024, Cleary delivered a van with the e-bike on a low loader to Skelmersdale, setting the stage. Morgan wore an orange reflective vest, posing as a construction worker to blend into the background, moving unnoticed through Lenny's world for weeks. Lenny was piecing together a new life, oblivious to Morgan's cold-blooded scheme, now just days from erupting in a deadly ambush. That ambush was set for a quiet February night, when Morgan's plan would explode into a brutal act of vengeance. On February 8, 2024, at 6:45 p.m., the parking lot at Peel House Gym in Skelmersdale is quiet, the winter chill settling over the asphalt. Lenny Scott, fresh from a jiu-jitsu session with his friend Aaron Walker, heads to his car, just another night after a workout. He doesn't see the figure in an orange reflective vest, hooded and waiting in the shadows. Elias Morgan, after weeks of stalking and planning, is ready to strike. As Lenny reaches his car door, he spots the stranger. Lenny Scott's final words before being executed were, "Who's the guy in the mask?" Then before he can react, Morgan pulls a self-loading handgun and fires, 6 shots, precise and merciless, tearing into Lenny's head and chest. Lenny stumbles, trying to flee, but collapses on the cold pavement. The attack lasts less than 10 seconds. Blood pools on the ground, and Morgan bolts to a compact e-bike parked nearby, speeding off into the darkness. CCTV cameras capture it all: the hooded figure, the gunfire, the escape. Bystanders, including ex-medics John Smith and Paul Thomas, rush to Lenny, performing CPR in a desperate bid to save him. Paramedics arrive, and he's raced to Aintree Hospital, but it's too late. Lenny Scott, 33, a father of 3, is pronounced dead on arrival. Morgan, after his 53-minute wait and a dummy run on the e-bike, discards the gun, vest, and bike. Lenny's life ended in that parking lot, but the hunt for his killer was just beginning, as police pieced together a trail of evidence that would lead straight to Morgan. The Peel House Gym parking lot in Skelmersdale lies still, stained with Lenny Scott's blood. The gunfire that ended his life at 6:45 p.m. sparked a manhunt that would grip Lancashire police. Over 60 officers descended on the case, chasing a killer who'd vanished into the night on a silent e-bike. The clock was ticking, and the trail was already going cold. Investigators started with the scene. CCTV footage from the gym captured every brutal second. A hooded figure in an orange reflective vest firing 6 shots, then speeding off. That vest, meant to blend Morgan into the background, became the first breadcrumb. Automatic number plate recognition cameras picked up a Mercedes GLC linked to Morgan's mother, moving away from Skelmersdale, its plates swapped to dodge tracking. A telematic SIM in the car, missed when Morgan disabled the SOS unit, traced his path back to Liverpool. Mobile data pinned a phone matching Morgan's to the same route, tying him to the crime. The net tightened fast. On February 13, 2024, police arrested Anthony Cleary, Morgan's accomplice, in Liverpool, 20 miles from the scene. Cleary, with priors for drugs and firearms, had driven the van that carried the e-bike on February 7th. He turned witness, revealing a damning call from Morgan confessing the murder. By February 19th, Morgan, now 35, surrendered himself, cornered by the evidence piling up. The man Lenny exposed for the 2020 phone violation was now the prime suspect in his murder. Police found traces of DNA, blood, and gunshot residue in the Mercedes, sealing the case. The investigation, relentless and precise, had cracked open Morgan's carefully laid plan. But the fight for justice was far from over. That fight would move to the courtroom, where a mountain of evidence would face Morgan's denial and test the system Lenny died serving. On June 24, 2025, Preston Crown Court hums with tension as Elias Morgan faces charges for the premeditated murder of Lenny Scott. Beside him stands Anthony Cleary, accused of aiding and abetting. Prosecutor Alex Leach lays it out. This wasn't a spontaneous killing. It was a cold, calculated execution. The evidence is airtight. CCTV footage from Peel House Gym shows Morgan, in an orange reflective vest, firing 6 shots into Lenny's head and chest on February 8, 2024. Mobile data and a telematic sim from his mother's Mercedes trace his escape route from Skelmersdale to Liverpool. DNA, blood, and gunshot residue found in the car seal his guilt. Surveillance records from January 3, 2024 catch Morgan scouting Lenny's Prescott home, Speak Gym, and Skelmersdale Gym, proof of his meticulous planning. A witness, Lewis Johnstone, saw a bike rider matching Morgan's description fleeing the scene. Cleary, the logistics man, delivered the van and e-bike on February 7th, but he denies knowing Morgan's intent, claiming he only helped transport the vehicle. The trial, stretching 9 weeks with adjournments, grips the nation. Morgan's alibi, a meeting about a sick dog, falls apart under scrutiny. His outbursts in court, showing no remorse, clash with the prosecution's narrative. A man driven by revenge for Lenny's 2020 report, desperate to dodge his own phone violation trial set for February 19, 2024. Morgan's prior convictions: burglary, conspiracy to rob, drugs, and causing serious injury by driving from 2005 to 2016, paint a picture of a habitual criminal. Cleary, with his own record for drugs and firearms, sticks to his denial. On August 29, 2025, after 5 hours and 24 minutes of deliberation, the jury delivers a unanimous verdict. Morgan is guilty of murder. Cleary walks free, acquitted of murder and manslaughter. On September 2, 2025, Morgan is sentenced to life with a minimum of 45 years, minus 452 days on remand, effectively 43 years and 278 days. The judge calls it a carefully planned revenge killing. Victim statements from Lenny's parents and wives echo the pain of a life stolen. The courtroom falls quiet, but the verdict ripples across the UK, leaving questions about justice and the cost of doing right. This case lays bare cracks in the prison system. If Lenny hadn't reported that iPhone in 2020, would he still be alive, coaching his kids or training at the gym? Or does staying silent erode justice itself? What's the real cost of standing up in a broken system? Thanks for watching today's episode on Crime Pulse. What do you think? Did the system fail Lenny Scott? Should prisons do more to protect officers who blow the whistle? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if this story gripped you, and subscribe to the channel for more hard-hitting investigations. Don't forget to tap the bell for notifications so you never miss our next deep dive.